Ronald Macdonald is gay. A long time ago, back when I was a human, before I became a VTuber, my mother and I both had terrible insomnia. She couldn't sleep, and I would hear her across the house. So I couldn't sleep. We were trapped in an endless cycle of insomnia. It was awful. But there was one thing that brought us comfort. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Every night at 3 a.m. in the morning, the greatest show on TV would run reruns, and we would sit down and watch them. My mom loved how terrible and absurd these people were. It reminded her of all the terrible people she grew up with. She really empathized with Dee, because she was also called a bird a lot. I always loved Charlie, being the misunderstood loner, toiling away, always felt relatable. And him being the most innocent of the three really spoke to me. But there was one character that when I look back on the show, after all these years, it's fascinating to try to understand Ronald Macdonald. Now I've been trying to write this video for months. I've tried to take it at a million angles. My main point was going to be Mac was always gay since the beginning of the show. But now that the Always Sunny podcast exploded out of the gate and beat Joe Rogan, I've been proven wrong. Mac was never designed to be gay, and trying to prove the opposite was literally impossible. So, I'm going to explain who Mac is, who Carman is, how Mac changed, and what this could all mean for us gays. So sit back and enjoy the video. Who is Mac, and what is Sunny? In the beginning of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Mac started off a very conservative, religious homophobe. The show was about terrible people doing terrible things, but eventually it devolved, for the better, into a beautiful, absurdist dream. But at first, the show was more grounded, and Mac was just a homophobe. He was raised religious, and he was designed to parody ridiculous religious beliefs. His father was in prison for most of his life, very similar to my own life, and he was instilled with all this internalized homophobia, also like me. Now, Sunny is a very offensive show, and its first season is incredibly rough. It's more of an extended pilot than a first season, and the creators actually don't like that season at all. The show really starts at season 2, when Danny DeVito, America's Angel, joins as Dennis and Dee's dad. At the end of season 2, we meet Mac's dad, who asks him and Charlie to smuggle drugs in their asses. Mac's dad tries to convince them to do this by telling them that they are two really badass guys. And from then on, Mac is always trying to prove how badass he is. This and his religious upbringing has made Mac incredibly homophobic and also very hyper-masculine. Mac hates himself and what he is to his core, but you can't fight your own sexuality. Carman. There's a lot of conversation revolving around the 4 episodes that Carman appears in. On one hand, she's a trans character on TV who is kind and a good person, which is good. But on the other hand, the way the characters in the show talk about her is very offensive. Some people actually miss Carman's first appearance because she's in the first season, and most people skip that one. The episodes with her are hard to watch. They don't age well, and the gang is at their worst. They are supposed to be terrible people, but in the first season, they're way too grounded. So it seems less like they are absurd assholes, and more like they are actually transphobic. But if you're a fan of the show and you look closer, Carman seems like an actual good portrayal of a trans character. She never does anything bad. All the things that are transphobic are done outside of her. Mac hates himself so much, he can't handle that he actually likes her, and he doesn't want his friends to make fun of him. So Dennis and Dee in this episode come off super transphobic, calling her terrible things, saying dating her is gross, and calling her a man, saying some stuff I can't say on YouTube. The camera even zooms in on her penis, and it's really, really hard to watch. But in the 4 episodes Carman appears throughout the series, they never show her in a negative light. The gang just sucks. In the first episode, Mac is ashamed of himself for liking her. In the second episode, Mac wants her to rush her surgery and she won't do it until she's ready. She asks him why he's so ashamed of her and he responds, "I'm not ashamed of you, I'm ashamed of myself." She breaks up with him and moves on. In the third episode, she's moved on and had the surgery. and Mac's homophobic nonsense says that her and her husband can't be married because it's gay, which it's not. And the gang is actually not homophobic or transphobic at all in this episode. They even explain how ridiculous Mac is being. Mac is just using this in his religion because he's jealous and hurt that she didn't tell him. Mac is jealous that after she transitioned, she didn't wait for him. Her fiancé yells out loud, "Oh, I see, you're gay and you can't handle it." By the last episode, Dee reveals that in her pregnancy for the entire season, that she was a surrogate for Carman. Carman is a mother with a husband, and the gang even says that she would be a better mother than any of them. But I'm a fan of the show, so I could be giving them too much credit. If people think it's transphobic, it might be. But I like to view it as a nuanced take on internalized homophobia and how it affects complex relationships. But I think if episodes were taken out of context, it could ruin the show one day. How Mac changed. It's hard to find the moment where Mac went from a fictional, homophobic, transphobic, devoutly religious character into an isolated, self-hating gay character, and finally to an out gay character. After watching the show a ton, I think it comes from a certain joke. In Season 4, Episode 4, Charlie and Dennis overhear Mac on the walkie-talkie while he's talking behind their back to the waitress. Due to a misunderstanding, Charlie and Dennis believe Mac is gay. And not only is he gay, but he is obsessively in love with them. Slowly as the show changes, this gets more and more true. Mac becomes obsessed with his roommate Dennis. Despite that Dennis had sex with a man in the first episode, after 17 years they only recently mentioned it again as an offhand comment. Mac and Dennis live in a very codependent relationship, but it never really becomes sexual. Mac becomes Smithers from The Simpsons. He becomes a servant for someone he is gay for, with no chance of it actually becoming something more. Just like me in high school. Eventually, Mac comes out. Multiple times. They hint throughout the show about him lying and actually being gay. Both of Mac's cousins have always been gay, and implied that Mac has also always been gay. Even in the first episode, the gang opens a gay bar, Mac's cousin shows up, and he's so happy for Mac, thinking that he came out. But at the time, it wasn't meant to mean Mac was gay, it was just supposed to be a misunderstanding. Now, a lot of things in the show have retroactively become gay. Eventually, Mac comes out in Season 11, 12, and 13. He comes out so he can win a scratch-off lottery ticket. And when he does, everyone thinks he'll just go back in the closet. But he says, "No, I think I'm out now." The gang tells them that they're happy for him, and that they'll hate him the same way anyway. In the last big gay moment of the show so far, Mac finds his pride. An amazing episode that helped me deal with a lot of my own issues about pride. Mac tries to find his place in the gay community with Frank. Frank doesn't get it, and the entire show, he's plugging up a wound on his nose. And it works as a metaphor. And Frank works as a father figure. Eventually, he explains to Mac that you can't let yourself get all bottled up. You gotta let it all out. You gotta let it flow. So Mac puts on a show for his father in prison to show him that he is gay. The show is beautiful, and even though Mac's father doesn't accept him, Frank does, saying the most powerful line in the show, "I get it. I get it." Sonny may not have started off planning for Mac to be gay, but they definitely like gay people. In the first episode, it's about how the gang sells out to make the bar gay so they can make more money. When they learn their new friend has made the bar a gay bar, now the cash is rolling in. They talked about gay marriage, trans issues. For some reason, they explained in great detail how power bottoms work. They explained and deconstructed many stereotypes, and parried a lot of ridiculous religious beliefs. What does it all mean? Sonny has been around for a long time. They are the longest running show of all time now, 17 years old. And they wanted to talk about things, explore topics, and parody the worst of people. Yes, the show is offensive, and yes, some of it may not have aged well. But the new seasons are amazing. It changed with the times, while still being the same, and it brought me hours of joy. But there's just one last thing it's made me think about. Is it okay to take a straight character and retroactively make them gay? At first, I'd tell you no. A gay character should always be gay, because we have always been gay. But Sonny has changed my mind. When I grew up, I didn't know I was bi. When I think back, In retrospect, I was bi the whole time, but I didn't know that. If a character goes through the same process, it's accurate to a lot of real lives. You're not always going to know if you're gay. You're not always going to accept it. But watching a character struggle and believe the most ridiculous things to the extreme helped me. Even if it was subtle, even if I didn't know it. I think it's okay if it's done right. And Mac has definitely been done right. So, let me know what you think. I'm not sure if I like the way this script turned out, but I think I got my points out there. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye. Not a lot of fuck-ups that time. I did a good job. I didn't make any mistakes. Good. There is some background noise. It's been kind of annoying. I don't know. Okay. I gotta stop recording.